Chapter 2780. Feng Su looked at the thousands of sword cultivators left in the 7-star sword realm and transmitted. What do we do with them? If the sword realm left right away, the Sky World army would most likely return. Moreover, the remaining cultivators were heavily injured and had almost no ability to protect themselves. Without the protection of the 7-star sword realm, they would be vulnerable to other calamities, even if the Sky World army didn't return. After some thought, Lu Yan looked at Meng Hao and the other cultivators. The 7-star sword realm has been destroyed. What plans do you have for the future? Are you willing to join us? Meng Hao and the other true immortals looked at each other and nodded after a moment of hesitation. Without the sword realm's shelter, they would have been wandering cultivators with no identity. Like rootless duckweed in the boundless cosmos, they could have died at any moment. The cosmos of the higher world was like a dark forest, filled with danger and danger. Even if they ran into a band of bandits, they wouldn't be able to stop them with their current strength. Thank you for taking us in, Senior. Meng Hao and the other sword cultivators bowed respectfully. Lu Yan nodded slightly and looked at Su Zimo. Brother Su, what do you think of having them join your 9th sword peak? There weren't many disciples in the peak, and there were only 2 true immortals. Lu Yan was doing Su Zimo a favor at no extra cost. I have no problem with that, but I don't know if they're willing. Su Zimo looked at Meng Hao and the others. The 9th sword peak was established not long ago, so its overall strength isn't high. There are only 2 true immortals, and as its peak lord, you can see my cultivation. The 7 true immortals who'd survived the 7-star sword realm were all stronger than Su Zimo. Meng Hao was one of the 3 true immortals in the Dongxi realm. Meng Hao hurriedly waved a hand. You jest, peak lord. We're already very grateful that the sword realm took us in. How could we not be willing? All right. Su Zimo nodded. Then from now on, you're all disciples of the sword burial peak. Greetings, peak lord. Meng Hao and the others endured the pain and bowed. That makes things easier. Since you're all part of the sword world now, we can head to the celestial tribute world together. If Meng Hao and the others were to head to the sword world on their own, the journey would be long, and no one knew what would happen. Following them was the safest choice. Meng Hao and the others naturally had no objections. Among the thousands of cultivators, apart from Meng Hao and a few others, most of them had never been to the celestial tribute world, and were a little curious about it. However, they were all heavily injured, coupled with the fact that they had just suffered a great calamity and had just lost their homes and loved ones. They were all in low spirits. Su Zimo and the others resumed their journey. They entered the spatial tunnel and headed towards the celestial tribute world. The vessel was enormous and more than enough to accommodate 1 million people. Meng Hao and the others quietly treated their injuries while Lu Yan, Yulan, and the others stood at the bow and chatted idly. Su Zimo silently gazed at the endless starry sky through the spatial tunnel. What had happened to the 7-star sword world had filled him with many emotions. The sight of the corpses floating in the river of blood had been a great blow to him. The scene still lingered in his mind. Hundreds of millions of innocent lives had been forcibly erased, just like that. No one in the vast upper realms cared about them at all. The destruction of the 7-star sword world didn't even cause a ripple in the upper realms. Chaos had already appeared in the upper realms. In the imperial tomb, Immortal Emperor Chen Mu had also told him to escape as soon as possible, to stay away from the center of the upper realms and the 3,000 worlds. In truth, Su Zimo had already thought of a way out. Due to the awakening of the World Devastator Demon Emperor, the Heavenly Baron sect would have a hard time resisting him in the demon realms. No one knew the World Devastator Demon Emperor's origins or what secrets he possessed. If it wasn't absolutely necessary, Su Zimo didn't want to face him head-on. The influence of the Pure Lands and Lord of Six Brahma, or Emperor Bosun, was growing stronger and stronger. There was no place for him in the 9th firmament immortal realm. If nothing unexpected happened, a great war was bound to break out between the 9 firmament immortal realm, the Pure Lands, and the demon realms. If he continued to linger in the world of celestials, he would easily be swept into it. The best way was to leave the world of celestials and head to a place far away from the center of the upper realms, far away from the war, and establish a pure land. There was no difference between the upper and lower realms. All races coexisted and were equal. Su Zimo wanted to establish a brand new world and establish a pure land. However, the 7-star sword world's experience made him realize that this path was full of difficulties and dangers. Without absolute strength and confidence, even if he established such a world, he would easily be destroyed. Are you still thinking about the 7-star sword world? Lu Yan asked softly when he saw Su Zimo with a heavy heart. Su Zimo nodded. Lu Yan sighed softly. Actually, things like the 7-star sword world aren't rare in the upper realms. Some worlds are rich in special resources, but they can be robbed clean. When the flames of war engulf them, all lives are lost. Some worlds' inhabitants obtain a peerless treasure, but it can also lead to disaster and the destruction of the world. If chaos truly comes, even a super major world may not be spared, to say nothing of a lowly world like the 7-star sword world. Chaos. Calamity? Su Zimo murmured softly, seeming to understand something. You should know that the sword world suffered a calamity after the All-Heaven era. Su Zimo nodded. Yu Lan, the Lord of Greatsword Peak, had mentioned this to him when he'd gone to the Exalted Sword Steel to comprehend the Tao. Lu Yan continued. Fortunately, the sword realm survived. After a few epochs, it rose to prominence again and became a super major realm. As far as I know, there were some super great realms in the past that never rose again after their decline. Some were even completely destroyed and disappeared in the river of time, leaving no trace behind. Su Zimo's heart trembled. To be called a super major world, there had to be at least 10 great emperors. But even a super major world couldn't withstand it, and was completely destroyed. What kind of power, what kind of disaster was it? He didn't know if the destruction of these super major worlds was related to the calamity that swept through the 3,000 worlds, or if it was due to some other reason. 5 days later, those from the sword world finally arrived at their destination. Lu Yan drove the boat through the spatial tunnel and returned to the cosmos. He pointed in a direction and said, "That's the celestial tribute world." Everyone looked into the distance but didn't see any realm. Lu Yan steered the boat in a streak of light and continued in that direction. Not long after, the immortal boat seemed to have crashed into a water screen. Its speed slowed down, and ripples appeared on the water screen. Those from the sword world felt as if they'd suddenly entered another world from the cosmos. The scene in front of them suddenly changed. Chapter 2781. The Celestial Bestowment Realm didn't look very big and spacious. What came into view was an enormous island floating in space. Most conspicuous of all were the 10 thick chains that stretched out around the island, stretching across half of the starry sky. The ends of the chains disappeared into the darkness in the distance, making it impossible to tell what was on the other side. Each chain would take 10 people to wrap around it, and they were covered in rust and traces of metal clashing. That's Celestial Bestowment Island. It's the only place in the Celestial Bestowment Realm that foreign cultivators can set foot in. What are those chains? Su Zimo asked. What's connected to the other end of the chains? Legend has it that the ends of the Celestial Bestowment chains are the 10 great sinful lands, where many evil spirits and sinful spirits are imprisoned. However, those areas are forbidden, and no one is allowed to approach them. The 10 great sinful lands? Evil spirits and sinful spirits? Su Zimo frowned slightly and looked at the end of the 10 heaven-crowning locks in deep thought. Not only was the darkness impenetrable to the naked eye, even his consciousness would vanish when he tried to probe it. For some reason, Su Zimo felt an inexplicable sense of discomfort after arriving in the Celestial Bestowment Realm. Everything around him was oppressive. After 5 days of recuperation, Meng Hao and the thousands of survivors from the 7-star sword realm had recovered from their injuries and were able to move about freely. Everyone walked out of the boat's lounge and looked around curiously at the legendary Celestial Bestowment Realm. Lu Yan stood at the bow of the boat and looked at the cultivators on board. This is the first time most of you have come to the Celestial Bestowment Realm, so there are a few rules I must explain. There's a type of formidable restriction energy in the Celestial Tribute world. Besides certain areas, no conflict is allowed anywhere else. Otherwise, one would definitely be mercilessly annihilated by the restriction energy in the celestial tribute world. You may not be able to sense it, but immortal kings like me can't even release their own grotto heavens in the celestial bestowment realm. It's said that the worlds of great emperors will be suppressed in the celestial bestowment realm. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Even imperial emperors would be restricted in the celestial tribute world. Yulan added, so don't take any chances. Just like here, on Heaven Venerate Island, don't fight with others. The celestial bestowment world is a very special place. No matter your identity or race, you can only stay for 10 days after entering. After 10 days, if you don't take the initiative to leave, you will be obliterated by the celestial bestowment realm. After leaving, the next time you want to enter the celestial tribute world, you will have to wait 1,000 years. Although everyone felt that this rule was a little strange, they could understand it. If there were no such rules, the countless beings of the 3,000 worlds would flock here and refuse to leave. The entire celestial tribute world wouldn't be able to hold them all. Su Zimo suddenly asked, the specific area that Brother Lu mentioned just now is the evil demon battlefield that you mentioned before? He'd mentioned the fiend battlefield on his way to the celestial tribute world. However, before he could explain in detail, he encountered the 7-star sword realm. Lu Yin nodded. That's right. Only in the fiend battlefield can one fight and kill as one pleases. The entrance to the fiend battlefield is on Celestial Tribute Island. Apart from Lin Xuanjin and the others, this was the first time most of the cultivators had heard of the fiend battlefield. Lu Yin explained, the fiend battlefield is similar to an ancient battlefield. It's a special space. It's called the fiend battlefield because of the many powerful fiends and sinful spirits that live there. These fiends and sinful spirits come from the 10 sinful lands. What exactly are these fiends and sinful spirits? This was not the first time Su Zimo had heard Lu Yin mention this phrase. The fiends and sinful spirits refer to some special and powerful beings. They're cruel, vicious and inhumane, such as the Yiksha ghosts and the Shura tribe. Su Zimo's interest piqued. He'd learned from Wu Dao's primary body that the beings of the ghost realm were the legendary Yikshas. The ghost realm and the middle realm were two independent worlds. There was an impenetrable barrier between them that only great emperors could break through. But now, the Yikshas had appeared in the middle realm and were called fiends and sinful spirits. The Shura tribe was likely a unique being born from the Shura realm. The beings of the ghost realm and the Shura realm were called fiends and sinful spirits by the celestial tribute world. If he wasn't mistaken, the Netherkin of the Hell realm was likely the same kind of fiend as the celestial tribute world. Su Zimo mused, what are sinful spirits? It's said that they're the descendants of some races that were bewitched by fiends and committed heinous crimes during the primordial era. Yulan said, there are all kinds of races among the sinful spirits' descendants. There are even quite a few human cultivators. But remember, they're sinful spirits and no different from fiends. You don't have to show mercy when the time comes. Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong, and the others nodded. They seemed to have been to the fiend battlefield before, and were no strangers to such matters. Su Zimo frowned slightly and remained silent. In that case, many of the fiends in the fiend battlefield should also be descendants of the Yikshas and the Shura race from the primordial era. But at the same time, another question arose in Su Zimo's mind. Since they're called sinful spirits, what heinous crimes did they commit back then? Su Zimo suddenly asked. Omnipotent Justice said, those sinful spirits were once bewitched by fiends and became enemies with all races, aiding the evildoer in his evil deeds. Their crimes were heinous. Su Zimo asked again. But that's a matter of the primordial era. These sinful spirits are only their descendants. What do they have to do with the primordial era? Yulan said, Brother Su, you might not know this, but those fiends are savage by nature and are extremely hostile to us beings of the upper realm. No matter how many generations pass down, their nature will never change. Su Zimo had a deep understanding of this point. In the infernal world, when the beings of hell heard that he came from the upper realm, most of them would develop immense hostility and killing intent. What about the sinful spirits inside? Su Zimo asked. They were born in this era with countless generations between them. They have nothing to do with the mistakes of their ancestors in the primordial era. Why do they have to bear all this? Lu Yun, Yulan, and the others were stunned for a moment, stumped by the question. It was as if someone had committed a heinous crime and had already been punished. No matter how many generations or how many years had passed, their descendants would still be implicated. The moment they were born, their descendants were branded with the mark of sin and had to be punished, unable to turn over a new leaf for the rest of their lives. However, what did these descendants have to do with the heinous crimes of the past? After a moment, Yulan said hesitantly, I think, the blood of sin also flows in the bodies of these sinful spirits' descendants. Although that was the case, Yulan's tone was somewhat uncertain. Lu Yun and the other peak masters fell into deep thought as well. Gong Sun Yu looked at Su Zimo and said with a smile, Peak Master, you'll know when you enter the fiend battlefield. Inside, even if you're benevolent, those fiend sinful spirits won't let us off. Those fiend sinful spirits are each more vicious than the other. In the fiend battlefield, it's a fight to the death. There's no other choice. Chapter 2782. Oh right. Su Zimo recalled something else. Brother Lu, you mentioned that exchanging for profound goldstone has something to do with the fiend battlefield. Why is that? Lu Yun smiled and explained. There are all sorts of peerless treasures in the Celestial Offering Pavilion, but you'll need contribution points to trade for them. Battle credits? Su Zimo murmured. Battle merits are similar to merit points. You can think of them as a currency unique to the Celestial Tribute world. Battle merits are only useful here. There's only one way to earn battle credits, and that's to enter the fiend battlefield and slay the sinful spirits there. Most of the sinful spirits in the fiend battlefield are at the true spirit realm. Yulan chimed in. Sun Zhen, Wang Dong, and the others killed sinful spirits there 1,000 years ago and earned some battle credits. However, they're still lacking a lot of battle credits to trade for treasures like profound goldstone. Realization dawned on Su Zimo. No wonder Lu Yin had said that one didn't need origin spirit stones or other rare treasures to trade for profound goldstone in the Sky Tribute world. Battle credits were the only form of currency in the Sky Tribute world. As the group conversed, the immortal boat arrived above Sky Tribute Island. Su Zimo looked back at the darkness in the distance with a slight frown. There was indeed something strange about the Sky Tribute world. Not only did it have some special rules, but it also had its own unique trading rules. From a certain perspective, the Sky Tribute world encouraged all races in the higher worlds to enter the fiend battlefield and earn battle credits. Sinful spirits and sinful spirits were enemies of all races? Could it be related to the upheaval that swept through the 3,000 worlds? Su Zimo felt that there was a layer of fog behind the matter that prevented him from seeing the truth. Even Lu Yun and the others' explanations were vague and ambiguous. The group left the immortal boat and slowly landed on Sky Tribute Island. Even though the Sky Tribute Island had a restriction that stated that every living being could only stay in the Sky Tribute world for 10 days every 1,000 years, the Sky Tribute Island was still filled with people, and it was extraordinarily bustling. There were too many living beings in the 3,000 realms, but there was only one heavenly Venerate Island. Sweeping his gaze, Su Zimo could tell that there were at least 7 or 8 different races in the surroundings. Even though they were in human form, their auras were extremely different from that of humans. In the celestial tribute world, you can see life forms from various realms. The dozens over there are from the Golden Crow realm. Su Zimo followed Lu Yun's gaze and saw a group of Dongxi realm sacred beasts. Their leader was tall and thin, with a pale golden complexion. His expression was cold, and his eyes were as sharp as a hawk's. The so-called Golden Crow realm was the realm ruled by the 3-legged Golden Crows. The Golden Crow race was one of the primordial 9 races in Tianhuang mainland. The Golden Crow realm was one of the super realms in the upper realm. Su Zimo glanced around and saw a dozen or so cultivators with their heads held high and their chests puffed out were passing by not far away. Although these cultivators were in human form, Su Zimo's essence spirit contained the dragon phoenix essence spirit and was extremely sensitive to the aura of dragons. He immediately recognized that these cultivators were from the dragon realm. The immortal king leading the dragon realm seemed to sense something and looked in the direction of those from the sword realm. His gaze finally landed on Su Zimo, and a trace of confusion flashed through the depths of his eyes. He shook his head and left with those from the dragon realm. Lu Yun, Yulan, and the others led thousands of sword cultivators in the direction of the celestial tribute pavilion. Along the way, Su Zimo saw the divine phoenix and divine phoenix from the Wutong realm, the golden-haired, blue-eyed Protoss from the light realm, and the tall barbarians from the barbarian realm. Su Zimo had encountered these beings on Tianhuang mainland before, and was quite familiar with them. However, he'd never seen most of them before. Fortunately, Lu Yun introduced them to him along the way, which broadened his horizons. For example, the giant realm he'd encountered on the Dragon Abyss planet belonged to a higher realm. The 5 realms of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth were all intermediate realms. On an isolated island, geniuses and true spirits from various realms gathered, as well as geniuses from 10,000 races. Even Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong, and the others didn't seem so outstanding after coming to Celestial Tribute Island. At this time, hundreds of women approached them from the side. Each of them exuded a faint fragrance, and were charming in their own way. Any one of these women was an outstanding beauty with a celestial appearance. Everywhere they passed, they attracted waves of burning gazes. Even Gong Sunyu, Wang Dong, and the others stole a few glances in their direction. Those are cultivators from the flower realm, Yulan said with a smile. The flower realm is a higher realm, and most of them are women. Their leader is Immortal King Yulan, a powerhouse in the Grotto Heaven realm. Immortal King Yulan had an outstanding bearing, like an orchid in an empty valley. When she saw Lu Yun and the others, she cupped her hands and nodded with a smile as a greeting. Suddenly, Immortal King Yulan's beautiful eyes shifted to Su Zimo. The handsome man in blue robes looked young, and was only a true immortal at the celestial realm. But he walked side by side with the other immortal kings. For some reason, Immortal King Yulan felt an inexplicable fondness for this young man she'd never met before. It was as if there was some special quality or aura on this person that made her involuntarily feel a sense of closeness. Love at first sight. The thought flashed through Immortal King Yulan's mind, and she immediately sobered up. What's wrong with me? Why am I imagining things? Others didn't know the inside story, but they saw Immortal King Yulan's beautiful eyes staring unblinkingly at Su Zimo. A faint blush even appeared on her cheeks, making her look even more charming and alluring. Lu Yun and the others were taken aback by this scene. Only Su Zimo had a rough idea of what was going on. Immortal King Yulan's true form should be an orchid, which was why she felt close to his Qinglian body. Taoist Yulan and brother Su know each other? Lu Yun coughed softly and asked tentatively. By now, Immortal King Yulan had returned to normal, and shook her head with a smile. No, how should I address you, young friend? This is Su Zhu, the Peak Lord of the 9th Sword Peak in the world of swords. Oh. Immortal King Yulan was slightly surprised. No wonder he can walk side by side with Taoist Lu and the others. In that case, we should treat each other as equals. Pausing for a moment, she looked at Su Zimo and smiled. Taoist Su, if you have the chance to come to the flower world in the future, Remember to come find me. I can take you on a tour around the world. This was a clear invitation. Bai Tianqing couldn't help but feel envious. Fairy Yulan, why didn't you invite us instead of Brother Su? We also want to take a look at the flower world. Immortal King Yulan smiled. Sure, you're all welcome to come along. What a good-for-nothing. Yulan rolled her eyes at him. Lu Yan also shook his head helplessly. How can you be like this? You're shameless enough to take the initiative without being invited. Those from the sword and flower worlds chuckled softly. The immortal kings chatted casually for a while longer before saying their goodbyes. Before leaving, immortal King Yulan gave Su Zimo a deep look before turning to leave with a trace of confusion. Chapter 2783. Skytribute Pavilion was located at the very center of Skytribute Island. It was also the tallest and largest building on the island, making it extremely conspicuous. As the group of Sword World made their way to Skytribute Pavilion, they encountered at least a few hundred beings from different realms. Most of the cultivators and living beings of the realms would show some respect when they saw the people of the Sword Realm. Even those from other major worlds would exchange a few polite pleasantries when they ran into Lu Yan and the others. However, Su Zimo's group was in the thousands, which naturally attracted a lot of discussion. Why are there so many people from Sword World? And a bunch of Earth and Empyrean immortals? Those people's attire is different from Sword World's. They look like they're from the 7-star Sword World. Oh right, I heard that the 7-star Sword World was destroyed a few days ago. Hundreds of millions of lives were slaughtered by the Sky World. It's now in ruins. These people are probably the last survivors of the 7-star Sword World. They must have been taken in by Sword World. Quite a few cultivators guessed the gist of the situation after a few words. It didn't take long for the group to arrive at Skytribute Pavilion. Lu Yan explained, every true spirit can receive their own identity medallion in Skytribute Pavilion. Leave a consciousness mark on the front of the medallion and write down your name. The back of the medallion will display the number of battle merit points you've accumulated. A consciousness mark? Su Zimo murmured thoughtfully. He suddenly recalled that when he'd first arrived in Divine Firmament, he'd been forced to participate in a hunting competition hosted by Duke Yuanzhua. Back then, Duke Yuanzhua had distributed a medallion to everyone and told them to leave their consciousness marks on it. In fact, with this divine sense imprint, Commandery Prince Yuanzhua could monitor everyone and know the location and movements of every cultivator. Don't worry, Brother Su Zimo. This Skytribute medallion has been passed down through the ages and has never encountered any problems. Su Zimo smiled but didn't explain. In fact, even if there were any problems with the medallion, this kind of trick wouldn't be able to threaten him anymore. After cultivating the Yin-Yang Talisman scripture, even the Academy Patriarch couldn't divine anything about him. With the help of the Yin-Yang Charm scripture, Su Zimo could leave his spiritual sense imprint on it. However, as long as he willed it, even if it was millions of miles away, the divine sense on the token would be erased without a trace. The medallion is only useful in the Celestial Bestowment world. You should deposit it in the Celestial Bestowment Pavilion before you leave. The contribution inside will also be preserved, so you can use it again next time you visit. After a pause, he continued. Of course, if a living being dies in the outside world, it means that the medallion is now ownerless, and the battle merits on it will be erased. Wang Tong Sunjun, go to the Skytribute Pavilion and get your tokens. Those who don't have tokens can also get them from the Skytribute Pavilion. Under the guidance of Lin Xuanjin and Wang Dong, Su Zimo, Kitsune, Meng Hao, and a few other true immortals who did not have Skytribute medallions entered a large hall on the left side of Skytribute Pavilion. As soon as they entered the hall, Su Zimo felt his vision brighten. Tiny specks of light floated around him. When Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong, and the others extended their consciousnesses, a speck of light flew toward them. It was their Skytribute medallions. When Su Zimo extended his consciousness, a similar medallion flew toward him. It was made of a unique material that looked like jade, but wasn't. It looked like stone but wasn't. Both sides were blank. Su Zimo imprinted Su Zhu on one side with his consciousness, and battle merits appeared on the other side. There was also a blank space behind the battle merits, with no indication of the number of battle merits. Kitsune Meng Hao and the others did the same. A short while later, the group exited the hall and returned to the entrance of Sky Tribute Pavilion. Looking at the thousands of Empyrean and Earth immortals gathered at the entrance, he mused, "Let's rent a residence. Although there's no danger in the Sky Tribute world, there are so many of us on this trip. It'll at least give us a place to settle down. Only true spirit realm cultivators or above could enter Sky Tribute Pavilion." The thousands of 7-star Sword World cultivators who'd just joined the Sword World didn't qualify. Yulan frowned. "It'll cost 10 battle merits to rent a residence that can accommodate thousands of people for a day. 10 battle merits doesn't seem too high, does it?" Suzimo asked tentatively. Yulan shook his head. "It's extremely difficult to earn battle merits in the Fiend battlefield. You should know that killing a Dongxi realm evil spirit is only worth 10 points. Killing a Unity realm evil spirit is only 1 point. Celestial realm evil spirits are worth 3 points. Kongming realm evil spirits are worth 6 points." Meng Hao clicked his tongue. "Damn, renting a residence like this for a day is the equivalent of killing a Dongxi realm evil spirit." "Exactly," Yulan agreed. "If we stay in the Sky Tribute world for 10 days, we'll be wasting 100 points. There are too many eyes in the Sky Tribute world," Feng Su said. "Renting a residence will at least prevent beings from other realms from spying on us. We won't have to be secretive when communicating either." At this moment, Lin Xuanjin suddenly opened his mouth and said faintly, "Master, let's rent this house. I can naturally get back the 100 military exploits I have consumed." "All right." Yulan relented when he heard Lin Xuanjin's words. In next to no time, everyone from the Sword Dimension found an empty courtyard house near the Heaven Tribute Pavilion, and there was a groove in the shape of a command token on the entrance of the courtyard. Lin Xuanjin stepped forward and placed his medallion in the groove. It fit perfectly. Immediately afterward, the house suddenly flashed with a burst of brilliance, and the door opened. Among the true immortals of the Sword World, Wang Dong, Gong Sunyu, and the others had less than 10 points in their medallions. Only Lin Xuanjin had more than 100 points in his medallion, which allowed him to rent the residence. Su Zimo saw everything clearly. Originally, there was a powerful seal around the house that made it impossible for others to break in. Only the merit of the Heaven Bestowment Medallion could remove the seal. After settling the several thousand Empyrean and Earth immortals into the residence, he looked up at the sky. "Time is of the essence, so let's not waste any more time. I think you should head to Sky Tribute Pavilion now and prepare to enter the Fiend battlefield." They only had 10 days to stay in Sky Tribute Pavilion. They hadn't earned a single point yet, but Lin Xuanjin had already spent 100 points. "All right." Gong Sunyu, Wang Dong, and the others rubbed their palms together in anticipation. Lu Yun, Yulan, and Su Zimo, as well as Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong, Meng Hao, and a dozen or so true immortals left the residence and returned to Sky Tribute Pavilion. Sky Tribute Pavilion can be roughly divided into 2 areas, Lu Yun said solemnly. Lu Yun said in a low voice, "There's a pagoda on the left with many rare treasures. The area on the right leads to the Fiend battlefield. Let's go to the treasure pagoda on the left first, and see how many points the ore costs. That way we'll know how much it costs." The group entered Sky Tribute Pavilion and took a left turn to arrive at a towering pagoda, the treasure pagoda of Sky Tribute Pavilion. Chapter 2784. Su Zimo's eyes lit up the moment he entered the treasure pagoda. Countless rare treasures were laid out in a dazzling array. Pills, weapons, natural treasures, cultivation methods and secret arts, immortal herbs and plants, armor and protective gear, immortal gold ores, beast eggs, insect eggs, and more. Dead or alive, there was everything one could think of. The array of treasures was as vast as the stars in the sky, displayed on the first floor of the pagoda. It was Meng Hao's first time here, and he couldn't help but gasp in amazement. Every treasure was placed in sealed chests of different sizes, each engraved with a different number. Next to each number was a groove the size of a Fengtian medallion. The numbers correspond to the battle points needed to exchange for each treasure. If you want a treasure, Place your medallion on it. If you have enough battle points, the chest will automatically open and take the treasure inside. Don't be fooled by the fact that there's no one guarding the pagoda. If anyone dares openly rob or steal anything inside, they'll be obliterated. Su Zimo took a casual look and saw a perfectly preserved Dao fruit that shone dimly in the treasure chest not far away. Normally speaking, most true spirits would cultivate Dao fruits in their bodies, but they'd be called by different names. However, it wasn't easy to obtain such a perfectly preserved Dao fruit. Every Dao fruit contained the profundities of the life's cultivation. If a cultivator could digest and absorb a Dao fruit, it would greatly improve their cultivation. There was a number marked on the chest, 10. 10 battle points. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. To think that it would only require 10 battle merits to preserve a perfect Dao fruit. Those from the sword world looked all the way down the pagoda's hall. Origin Celestial Crystal, 100 battle points. Violet Blood Ganoderma, 200 battle points. Blood Dissipation Needle, 250 battle points. As the group ventured deeper, the treasures around them required more and more battle points. Su Zimo soon spotted a familiar treasure. The Bodhi Seed. This treasure was placed in the arcane realm of Qing Wei Heaven by immortal Emperor Chen Mu. It was of great help to Su Zimo's cultivation. Even in the upper realm, it was an extremely rare and precious treasure. Exchanging for a Bodhi Seed required 500 battle merits. In the evil demon battlefield, killing a Unity stage evil demon only gave 1 battle credit. Killing a Dongxi stage evil spirit only gave him 10 battle merits. It was not easy to obtain 500 battle merits. It had already been an hour since they arrived here, and they were only halfway through the first floor of the treasure pagoda. The people from the sword world had yet to see the grand white profound gold rock. Lu Yun Yulan and the others frowned. If the grand white black gold rock required too many battle merits, the pressure on Lin Xuanjin and the others would increase, and they might return empty-handed. Everyone walked forward until they were about to reach the end of the hall. Finally, they saw the grand white profound gold stone in a treasure chest. This piece of grand white black gold rock was only the size of a fingernail, but it cost 1,000 battle merits. Yulan sighed softly. 1,000 battle merits. It's the most valuable treasure on the first floor of the treasure pagoda. When Su Zimo saw the troubled expression on Lu Yin, Yulan, and the others' faces, he realized that it would be more difficult and dangerous to enter the evil demon battlefield to obtain battle merits. 1,000 battle merits in 10 days meant that they would have to obtain 100 battle merits every day. If they wanted to kill Dongxi stage true spirits, they would have to kill 10 of them. Su Zimo had fought with the Yiksha tribe and the Shura tribe before, so he knew how terrifying they were. If he encountered them in the evil demon battlefield, it would be troublesome. Su Zimo pondered for a while, then said, "If we can't accumulate enough battle merits this time, can't we wait 1,000 years and come back to the celestial world and continue to obtain battle merits in the evil demon battlefield?" "Of course," Lu Yun said. "However, the grand white profound gold rock might have been exchanged by someone the next time you come. Also, if you accumulate 1,000 battle merits, it means that you've killed many evil demons. The powerful evil demons in the evil demon battlefield will definitely target you. When you enter the evil demon battlefield next time, the weak evil demons and sinful spirits will have long since gone into hiding. You'll easily be targeted by the powerful evil demons, so you won't have a chance to obtain many battle merits." Feng Su said, "As far as I know, the strongest true spirits in history can only accumulate 4,000 or 5,000 battle merits. It'll be very difficult to obtain more." Lin Xuanjin said, 1,000 battle merits in 10 days is not impossible." Gong Sun Yu also said, "Peak Lords, don't worry. We have the Celestial Medallion. If we encounter danger, we can retreat at any time." This was another use of the Celestial Medallion. As long as one had the medallion with them, they could leave the evil demon battlefield and return to the celestial world. However, it would cost 10 battle merits each time. Sword Immortal Tai Lai also said, "That's right. Since we're already here, we should go to the evil demon battlefield and fight." In the sword world, They usually had their hands tied when sparring with fellow disciples. There were too many concerns. Now that they were in the celestial world, they didn't need to hold back when facing evil demons and sinful spirits. They could kill to their heart's content, so they naturally didn't want to return empty-handed. Lu Yun, Yulan, and the others looked at each other. After some hesitation they nodded. Bai Tianqing said, "The evil demon battlefield is no friendly place. The evil demons and sinful spirits inside are vicious and powerful. They're not to be underestimated. Among the evil demons and sinful spirits inside, there are even geniuses who've comprehended unparalleled combat arts. If you run into them, do not fight them. Retreat immediately." The evil demons and sinful spirits inside can comprehend unparalleled combat arts? Meng Hao jumped in fright. Of course, Lu Yun said. The strongest evil demons and sinful spirits inside are no weaker than the geniuses of the various worlds and races. Otherwise, they would have all been killed long ago. Many geniuses of the 3,000 worlds have died inside since ancient times, becoming food for the evil demons. Nominally, you're the ones going in to slay the evil demons and gain battle merits. But the evil demons and sinful spirits inside also want to kill you and take your cultivation resources. Yulan added, In addition to guarding against the evil demons and sinful spirits inside the evil demon battlefield, you also have to be wary of the true spirits of other worlds. There are no restrictions in the evil demon battlefield at all. Battles between the true spirits of various races often occur inside, so you must be careful. Feng Su said, I just looked around and didn't see anyone from the Celestial Eye clan or the Stone clan. This is a good thing for us. The Stone clan? Su Zimo's expression changed. Seeing Su Zimo's confusion, Lu Yun explained, The Stone clan is also a super major world, and its relationship with our Sword clan is like fire and water. The grudge between us has been like this for several epochs. The Stone clan's bloodline is ordinary, but their bodies are incredibly tough. Even divine weapons may not be able to harm them. They're easy to recognize. Most of them are tall and sturdy, and their skin is gray and rough, as if they're covered in a layer of stone. It's not just the evil demon battlefield. If you run into them anywhere else in the future, you must be careful. Su Zimo nodded and noted it down. Chapter 2785. What's up there? Su Zimo pointed above. The treasure pagoda towered into the clouds, and clearly had more than one floor. They were only on the first floor of the treasure pagoda. Lu Yun said, All kinds of rare treasures are stored in the treasure pagoda. The same goes for the upper 4 floors. The treasures on the second floor of the treasure pagoda require at least 1,000 battle points. The upper limit is 2,000. The treasures on the third floor require between 2,000 and 3,000 battle points, and so on up to the 5th floor. As the floors continued to rise, the number of battle merits required for the treasures would also increase. What about after the 5th floor? Meng Hao couldn't help but ask. Yulan said, The treasures on the 5th floor require at least 5,000 battle points. But from what I know, they haven't been open for a long time. Bai Tianqing interrupted. Rumor has it that there are even more rare and precious treasures on the 10th floor. There are even forbidden manuals. Ah! Everyone from the sword world gasped. Lu Yun shook his head slightly. Those are just rumors. Even if they are true, the amount of battle points required is unimaginable. It's impossible to achieve by killing in the fiend battlefield. That was indeed the case. The number of true spirits that could enter the fiend battlefield from each realm was limited to 10. The number of fiends in the fiend battlefield was hard to estimate. If they stayed in the fiend battlefield for too long, they would definitely be targeted and fall into a dangerous situation. Not to mention obtaining battle points. It was already extremely fortunate to be able to escape in time. The group walked around the first floor of the treasure pagoda before leaving. They needed to obtain 1,000 battle points, which was extremely difficult for Lin Xuanjin and the others. Time was precious, so there was no need for them to stay in the treasure pagoda for too long. After leaving the treasure pagoda, the group didn't stop and headed toward the fiend battlefield. On the way, Lin Xuanjin suddenly said, I'll distribute the battle points in the honor medallion to all of you. Lu Yin nodded. Everyone gets 10 points of merit. That way, we'll be able to leave as soon as possible if we run into any danger. Not only did the Heaven Bestowment token record battle merits, but it was also equivalent to a teleportation method, allowing one to leave the demonic battlefield at any time. However, every time he used the Heaven Bestowment token to teleport back from the demonic battlefield, he had to spend 10 battle merits. Although Wang Dong, Gong Sunyu, and the others had also been to the Celestial Tribute Realm, they had less than 10 battle merits on their tokens. As for Su Zimo and Kitsun's Heavenly Bestowment medallions, they didn't have a single contribution. Wang Tong and the others took out their skybound medallions, and Lin Xuanjin gently touched his medallion with theirs. In the blink of an eye, the battle merits on Wang Tong's Feng Tian token had increased to 10 points. Upon seeing this, Su Zimo suddenly frowned as if he had thought of something. Noticing that something was off with Su Zimo, he said, "I'm sure you've already guessed it, Brother Su." Su Zimo nodded gently. If the battle merits on the Heaven Bestowment medallion can be transferred at will, it means that there's a high chance that the true spirits of the various worlds will fight for battle merits in the Fiend battlefield. Exactly, Lu Yin said. Lu Yin continued. Therefore, in addition to guarding against the evil spirits, you also need to be wary of the experts from other worlds. Feng Su said, true spirits of the various worlds often kill each other in the demonic battlefield. However, ordinary true spirits don't dare provoke our sword world. By Tianqing at it, Lin Xuanjin and the others formed the great formation of myriad swords. Chapter 2786. Do you have any other questions? He looked at Lin Xuanjin, Su Zimo, and the others. His words were mainly directed at Su Zimo and Kitsun. After all, it was their first time in the Celestial Bestowment world. Su Zimo pondered for a moment before asking, are there any other ways to teleport back from the Celestial Bestowment medallion? After all, using the medallion to teleport required a lot of merit points. The merit points on their medallions had come from Lin Xuanjin, so it would be best if they could save them. Yes, Lu Yin nodded. There are 10 spatial nodes in the Fiend battlefield that can be used to teleport people out at any time. However, the locations of these nodes change frequently. Unless you're extremely lucky, it'll be very difficult to find them in 10 days. Yulong continued. Brother Su, there's no need for you and Kitsun to take the risk with Sun Jun and the others. With Sun Jun leading the team this time, the 8 of them will be more than enough. It won't be too late to enter the Fiend battlefield after you and Kitsun reach the Dongxi realm. Yulan's true intention was for Su Zimo and Kitsun to follow them in, while Lin Xuanjin and the others would have to expend some effort to protect them. Not only would the 2 of them be unnecessary, they might even drag down Lin Xuanjin and the others. However, Yulan spoke rather tactfully and didn't make the matter clear. Feng Su and Bai Tianqing looked at each other, understanding the meaning behind Yulan's words. Feng Su also smiled. That's right. Brother Su, if you're interested, you can take a look at the 10 giant screens in Celestial Bestowment Square. You'll gain a rough understanding of the Fiend battlefield and accumulate experience. Su Zimo pondered for a moment. Let's go in and take a look. It won't be too late for me to back out if anything happens. In reality, Su Zimo was not interested in killing the so-called evil fiends and sinful spirits for battle merits. However, Lin Xuanjin and the others had taken a huge risk to come here and fight in the fiendish demon battlefield in order to obtain the Grand White Mysterious Gold Oregon. As for the Grand White Profound Gold Stone, it was the ultimate treasure of the Burial Sword Peak. As the Peak Master of Burial Sword Peak, he couldn't stay out of this matter. When Yulan and the others heard Su Zimo's words, they couldn't persuade him any further. Lu Yin waved a hand. There's no harm in Brother Su coming with us. He paused for a moment, then looked at Lin Xuanjin and the others with a serious expression. However, Wang Dong, Sun Jun, the 8 of you must take good care of Brother Su and Kitsun and ensure their safety. Wang Dong said in a deep voice, Master, don't worry. When we enter the evil demon battlefield, we will form the Myriad Sword formation and protect Peak Master Su and junior sister Baiming in the middle. When she heard this, Kitsune turned to look at Su Zimo with a strange expression. Su Zimo hadn't used his full strength in the sword world. Although everyone knew that he'd comprehended Ultis, his cultivation was limited. Even if he'd comprehended a peerless combat art, how much of its power could he bring to bear? No one knew his true strength, not even Kitsune. However, Kitsune was certain of one thing, and that was that Su Zimo didn't need anyone's protection. Su Zimo remained calm and didn't say anything. Gong Sunyu said, "Don't worry, Peak Masters. After all, we have the Fengtian medallion. Even if we run into danger, we'll be able to escape unscathed." Lu Yun said in a low voice, "Even with the medallion, we can't be careless. Who knows how many geniuses from various worlds have been buried in the fiendish demon battlefield?" Bai Tianqing nodded. "Some geniuses are arrogant and think that their battle prowess is unparalleled. They seek out powerful fiends to fight them, and by the time they want to leave the battlefield, they won't have the chance to use the medallion. There are also true spirits who are instantly killed by the fiends and sinful spirits inside. They don't have time to use the medallion at all," Yulan added. "The medallion is only a way out for you. It can't completely guarantee your safety. Don't be careless. If you run into any danger inside, or the 10 great fiends don't linger, use the medallion to teleport back at once." Wang Dong, Gong Sunyu, and the others all nodded in agreement. In truth, they were already getting impatient. They were the strongest of their respective peaks, and this wasn't their first time entering the fiendish demon battlefield. They were brimming with confidence and couldn't wait to enter the battlefield and fight to their heart's content. The 10 great fiends. Su Zimo's expression changed. There are a great number of fiends and sinful spirits in the fiendish demon battlefield. Some powerful fiends have been born there, all of them at the level of true spirits. After countless battles, the true spirits of all races selected the strongest 10 from the fiendish demon battlefield. They are the 10 great fiends. Meng Hao clicked his tongue. "That's amazing. Most of the geniuses from the various major worlds have died at the hands of the 10 great fiends," Lu Yun said. "Even the true spirits on the battle merit jade steels have a hard time winning against the 10 great fiends. It's precisely because of the 10 great fiends that the true spirits of all races can't rake in battle merits as they please," Yulan said. "For example, the supreme true spirit on the war merit jade steel. Once it enters the fiend battlefield, it will definitely be targeted by one of the 10 great fiends." Gong Sunyu smiled. "The 10 of us didn't leave our names on the steels, so we shouldn't attract the attention of the 10 great fiends." Lu Yun nodded. "No matter what, you should still be careful in the fiendish demon battlefield. If you run into danger, we won't be able to help you, even if we can see it. Before you enter the battlefield, hang your bestowment medallions on your waists and show them to the outside world. They're also a reflection of your identity. Apart from a few demons with special appearances that can be recognized at a glance, there are also many sinful spirits that look no different from the other races. You can determine whether they're sinful spirits or true spirits of the 3,000 worlds by relying on the medallions." Under the repeated instructions of the 4 peak lords, Su Zimo, Lin Xuanjin, and the others stepped into a transportation formation under one of the giant curtains and disappeared from the Sky Tribute Plaza. Lu Yun's expression darkened as he looked in the direction Su Zimo and the others had disappeared. Because they'd just fought the Celestial Eye clan before arriving in the Sky Tribute world, and the Cold Eye King had even threatened them, he'd been worried all along. In truth, the true spirits of the sword world in this life might be able to contend with the Celestial Eye world. However, Lin Xuanjin, Su Zimo, and Yun Ting weren't at their peak yet. They still needed time. As long as the 3 of them grew up, they'd definitely have the right to leave their names on the jade steels. "Don't worry." Yulan saw the worry in Lu Yun's heart and comforted him. Brother Su and Kitsune aren't strong enough. But with Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong, and the others, their myriad sword formation is almost flawless. If Lin Xuanjin can use this opportunity to comprehend the true essence of Ultis and become a true spirit, it'll be easy for him to earn 1,000 battle credits, Feng Su said. "I hope so." Yulan also looked forward to it. The four Peak Lords' consciousness probed the 10 giant curtains and quickly found Su Zimo, Lin Xuanjin, and the others. Over there. Lu Yin pointed at one of the curtains. Zone 3 of the Fiend Battlefield. Chapter 2787. Accompanied by a slight dizziness, Su Zimo's group left Sky Tribute Square and arrived in a completely different space. Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong, and the others had just arrived. They immediately spread out their divine senses and formed the myriad sword formation, protecting Su Zimo and Kitsune in the middle. They were on high alert and carefully probing their surroundings. The 10 of them were in a valley surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, and the exit of the valley on the other side. They could see a dark and deep forest. The surroundings were quiet, and even a little gloomy. Even the air was slightly moist, and emitted a faint smell of blood. The Fiend Battlefield. Everyone looked around and heaved a sigh of relief when they did not discover any danger. Their tense minds gradually relaxed. Let's go that way. Lin Xuanjin pointed in the direction of the exit of the valley and said in a deep voice. Although Su Zimo had the highest status among the 10 of them, in the eyes of everyone, Lin Xuanjin was the #1 perfected immortal of Sword World and should be the leader of this group. No one had any objections to her decision. Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong, and the others did not move quickly and maintained the myriad sword formation. Lin Xuanjin was at the front and was equivalent to the tip of an immortal sword. If anything happened, Lin Xuanjin would be the first to attack. Half an hour later, the group walked out of the valley and did not encounter any danger throughout the entire process. Peak Master Junior Sister Baiming, don't think it's too slow. Wang Dong explained. In the Fiend Battlefield, it's best to move on the ground. Although it's slower, it's relatively safe and won't attract too much attention. Of course, it's a different story if there are some powerful and fearless supreme true spirits. Su Zimo nodded. With everyone's means, if they wanted to leave the valley, they only needed to fly in the air, and it would only take a few dozen breaths. However, if they flew in the air, it would be easier to expose their whereabouts and attract the attacks of large numbers of fiend sinful spirits. The exit of the valley was still some distance away from the forest in the north. There was a vast plain in the middle, where some grass that was half a person's height grew. Su Zimo's expression changed and he suddenly said, "Someone's coming." "Who is it?" Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others were stunned for a second. They kept their eyes on the 6 directions and ears on the 8 directions from beginning to end. They spread out their divine senses, yet they didn't notice anything unusual, nor did they notice anyone approaching. They were all true immortals of the Dongshu stage, but they didn't sense the danger. Could it be that Su Zimo had sensed it first? That person is fast. Su Zimo frowned slightly and said again. We are surrounded. Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others were still oblivious. Li Shui, Shen Yu, and the others looked at each other and curled their lips slightly. Although they did not say anything, they did not agree in their hearts. It was true that Su Zimo was the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak, so they did not dare to talk about it in public. However, in their hearts, they were more or less dissatisfied with Su Zimo. He was only a true immortal of the heavenly human stage, but he had ascended to the position of peak master. His status was above theirs. They were all true immortals of the Dongshu stage, the top cultivators of their respective sword peaks. Naturally, they felt a little uncomfortable. Now, Su Zimo's warning seemed more like an overreaction to it. He was too nervous, so he was startled. Gong Sunyu coughed softly and said, Peak Master Su, you might be too nervous. Don't worry. As long as you and junior sister Baiming follow us closely, you won't. Everyone be careful. There's danger. Before Gong Sunyu could finish, Lin Xuanjin suddenly opened his mouth and said quickly, Buzz. Before he finished speaking, the immortal sword on Lin Xuanjin's back had already been unsheathed and landed in his palm, emitting a sword light. It was only now that everyone realized that danger was indeed approaching. Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others drew their immortal swords and waited with rapt attention. At this moment, Wang Tong and the others finally sensed the danger. The other party was coming menacingly from all directions. They had already formed an encirclement, and their speed was shocking. When Wang Tong and the others first sensed the other party, they were still 100 miles away. In the blink of an eye, they were already within 10 miles. What a fast movement technique! Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others were shocked. In the sword world, other than killing techniques, they were most proficient in movement techniques. But now, the other party's movement technique was clearly faster than everyone else's. This kind of movement technique speed was so fast that it could even escape the detection and envelopment of divine senses. Not only that, everyone could not see the figure of the other party at all. They could only judge by the swaying of the surrounding grass. The surrounding grass seemed to have been hit by a huge impact, breaking and collapsing one after another. No one knew what kind of terrifying living being was hiding in the grass. Gullies appeared one after another, and they were rapidly approaching the people of the sword world. Wang Tong and Gong Sunyu were nervous, and their palms were sweating. No one had expected to encounter such a crisis the moment they arrived in the fiend battlefield. Lin Xuanjin's expression was calm. He closed his eyes and tried his best to sense the surrounding movements. All of a sudden, Lin Xuanjin opened her eyes and hollered, "Attack!" With her in the lead, Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others drew their swords and channeled their Dao fruits. Instantly, the 1,000-sword formation was activated, releasing streaks of terrifying sword qi in all directions. The 8 of them had known each other for many years and had great teamwork. Although they had yet to see their opponents, everyone chose to believe in Lin Xuanjin's judgment after hearing her voice and activated the 1,000-sword formation right away. Pust, pust, pust. The 1,000-sword formation was activated like a gigantic spiral, slicing through the dense grass in the surroundings and creating large empty areas. Cling, clang, clang. The sound of metal clashing could be heard from the grass. When the grass was destroyed, the other party knew that they could no longer hide their tracks, so they all rose into the air and finally revealed themselves. When they saw the other party, the pupils of Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others constricted slightly. As for Su Zimo and Kitsune, a look of shock flashed through their eyes. Most of the living beings were tall and ugly. They had green faces and fangs while their skin was dark. All of them stood in the air with 2 pairs of gigantic flesh wings on their backs. At the end of their flesh wings, there were sharp nails on their fingers and toes that shone with a cold glint. Wielding a gigantic curved saber in each of their hands, they looked like malevolent ghosts from hell. There were a few living beings that were similar to humans in terms of appearance. Although they had 2 pairs of flesh wings on their backs as well, their figures were slender, and their faces were beautiful. They were rather alluring. Rakshasa race? When Su Zimo saw them, he recognized the background of the living beings right away. The Rakshasa race was one of the primordial 9 races of Tianhuang mainland. The men of the Rakshasa race were frighteningly ugly with black bodies and red hair. They had green faces and fangs that were frighteningly menacing. However, the women were slender and beautiful, similar to humans. Of course, there were slight differences between the Rakshasa race before them and those of Tianhuang mainland. The Rakshasa race of Tianhuang mainland only had a single pair of flesh wings. However, the living beings before them all had 2 pairs of wings and looked even stronger. Chapter 2788. It was no wonder why the other party's movement technique was so fast. Even in Tianhuang mainland, the Rakshasa race that only had a pair of wings was one of the fastest among the 10,000 races. There were more than 100 Rakshasas, and all of them were at the true spirit realm. Among them, there were more than 80 Paradise Void true spirits, while the rest were at the Consolidation, Heavenly Being and Kongming realms. This is a little tricky. Sword Immortal Tai Lai sent a voice transmission with a grim expression. Gong Sunyu said softly, "If it's just this group of Rakshasa ghosts, we might be able to fight them. However, their movement techniques are way too fast. It's easy to injure them, but difficult to kill them." The situation before them was even more troublesome than when they faced the hundreds of perfected immortals of the Heavenly Eye race back in the 7-star sword world. Back then, although the Heavenly Eye race had hundreds of true spirits, there were not many Paradise Void true spirits. But now, the Rakshasa race had hundreds of Paradise Void true spirits. Most importantly, the Rakshasa race was best at speed. They came and went without a trace, traveling thousands of miles in an instant. As Gong Sun Yu said, even if they could severely injure some of the Rakshasa ghosts, with the help of the Thousand Sword Formation, they would be able to escape the battlefield, as long as they gave them a chance to catch their breath. There was no way they would chase after the injured Rakshasa race beings. The moment someone chased after the injured Rakshasa race beings, their sword formations would disperse, and they would be at a disadvantage. In reality, the Rakshasa race was the last thing the true spirits of the 3,000 worlds wanted to encounter in the fiend battlefield. Even if they encountered the Rakshasa race, most of the true spirits would choose to avoid fighting. That was because even if they could win against the Rakshasa true spirits, they might not have the chance to kill them. Instead, it would be a waste of energy. Furthermore, there were more than 100 Rakshasas right now. Rakshasa ghosts. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat when he heard Gong Sun Yu's term for the Rakshasa race. He seemed to have thought of something, and fell into deep thought. Most of the primordial 9 races of Tianhuang mainland reigned supreme in the upper world. In fact, some of them were even super worlds. For example, the Protoss of the light world, the Heavenly Eye race of the Heavenly Eye world, the Barbarian race of the Barbarian world, and the 3-legged Golden Crow of the Golden Crow world. These races either had powerful bloodlines, powerful physical bodies, or some kind of terrifying innate talent. But Su Zimo did not expect that the Rakshasa race would actually appear in the fiend battlefield. This meant that the Rakshasa clan was classified as a type of devil in the upper realm. Maintain the sword formation and retreat towards the forest. At that moment, Lin Xuanjin's voice rang out in everyone's minds. Lin Xuanjin made up his mind and rushed towards the forest. Wang Tong, Gong Sun Yu, and the others followed closely behind. The formation of the 8 people seemed to have condensed into an immortal sword as they headed towards the dense forest. Lin Xuanjin also realized that there was nothing to gain from fighting with this group of Rakshasas. The losses outweighed the gains. If everyone fought, they might not be able to obtain many battle merits. Instead, it would cause them to consume a lot of energy. However, even though the 10 from the sword world wanted to leave, the 100 over Rakshasas around them did not agree to it. Kill! Accompanied by a sharp howl, more than 100 Rakshasa true spirits flapped the gigantic wings on their backs. Wielding dual sabers, they turned into streaks of dark light and charged towards Su Zimo's group. TSK, 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 TSK. The sword formation was activated and released countless sword chi that surged in midair, forming an impenetrable sword net. More than 100 Rakshasas circled around the sword net continuously. Wielding dual sabers, they collided with the sword net, and sparks flew everywhere. The movement techniques of the Rakshasa race were way too fast. Even though Wang Tong, Gong Sun Yu, and the others released their spirit consciousnesses, they could not lock onto them. They could only rely on the 1,000 sword formation to keep the 100 Rakshasas at bay. Many of the Rakshasas could tell that Su Zimo and Kitsune had the weakest cultivation realms. They glared at the 2 of them and attacked repeatedly. However, the 1,000 sword formation formed by Lin Xuanjin's group of 8 was fully activated with almost no flaws, and the Rakshasas could not charge in immediately. Lin Xuanjin's group of 10 retreated and fought at the same time. Although they could not kill the Rakshasas could not break through the defense of the 1,000 sword formation either. Kitsune followed closely behind Su Zimo. Feeling confused, she could not help but ask through voice transmission, "Master, the attacks of the Rakshasas are ferocious. It's clear that they want to kill us all. What's the use of retreating into the forest?" Su Zimo replied, "The forest is dark and deep with ancient trees that reach the clouds. It'll affect and restrict the movement techniques of the Rakshasas." Kitsune understood instantly after being reminded by Su Zimo. The Rakshasas' movement technique could only unleash its greatest power in a wide open space. Although the ancient trees in the forest could not defend against the sharp fleshy wings of the Rakshasas, they would definitely affect their movement techniques to a certain extent. This effect was extremely fatal for a fight between top-tier true spirits. After fighting for a while, Lin Xuanjin's group of 8 relied on the thousand-sword formation and were completely unharmed. Su Zimo and Kitsune were at the center of the sword formation and were unharmed as well. On the other hand, some of the Rakshasas with lower cultivation realms were injured by Lin Xuanjin's immortal swords. Although they were not killed and managed to escape from the battlefield in time, many Rakshasas were enraged, and the killing intent in their eyes intensified. Just as the 10 of them from the sword world were about to enter the forest, a paradise void Rakshasa woman shrieked. Freeze! A series of visible halos burst forth from the glabella of the Rakshasa woman, shrouding Lin Xuanjin's group of 10. Time stopped the supreme divine power? Wang Dong, Gong Sun Yu and the others were calm and indifferent. A single supreme divine power could not affect the thousand-sword formation at all. Su Zimo was the only one who furrowed his brows slightly and noticed something amiss. That divine power was indeed time stop. However, the divine power that the Rakshasa woman had comprehended had already touched upon a trace of the power of space-time imprisonment. As for space-time imprisonment, it was a supreme divine ability. Watch out. Right then, Lin Xuanjin noticed something amiss and warned hurriedly. Initially, the thousand-sword formation was operating normally. However, after the Rakshasa woman released time stop, the thousand-sword formation paused for a moment. That pause did not affect Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong and the others much. However, it revealed a flaw in the thousand-sword formation. Swash! Everyone merely felt a flash before their eyes as a ghostly figure flashed by. Wang Dong, Gong Sun Yu and the others instinctively waved their swords to block, but all their immortal swords missed. Wang Dong, Gong Sun Yu and the others seemed to have thought of something as their expressions changed starkly. That flaw was not much of a threat to them. However, Su Zimo and Kitsune, who were at the center of the formation, were exposed to the Rakshasa race instantly. That flaw was enough to claim the lives of Su Zimo and Kitsune. Chapter 2789. Among the 100-odd Rakshasa true spirits, this Rakshasa woman had the strongest combat strength. She was also their commander, and was in control of the entire situation. She had released the time-stop peerless divine ability. Although it had exposed a flaw in the myriad sword array, through the exchange of blows just now, she could clearly tell that the 8 people who formed the sword array were not weak. It was unrealistic for her to make use of this flaw, to kill one of the 8 of them. Furthermore, the combat strength of the only woman, who held a sword among the 8 of them, was so strong that she even felt a huge threat. She only had a chance for a moment. After this moment, the sword-wielding woman would react. A moment was definitely not enough to deal with the Paradise Void Realm true spirit. However, killing a true spirit at consolidation, or heavenly being true spirit, would be a piece of cake for her. She locked her target on the man and woman in the middle of the sword formation. It was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, but the result of careful consideration and planning. How could it be that easy to make use of the terrain advantage of the dense forest to defend against the Rakshasa race? Before entering the dense forest, I'll let you leave 2 corpses behind. In a flash, she wielded her dual sabers and turned into a streak of black light, arriving before the man and woman in the middle of the sword formation. The man and woman seemed to be scared out of their wits, and were still standing motionlessly on the spot without reacting. The man had a delicate face and clear eyes as he looked up at her. Their gazes met, and a strange feeling arose in her heart. This person doesn't seem that despicable. Should I spare his life? The moment that thought flashed through her mind, she killed it. Since I've chosen to enter this place, it must be to hunt them down and obtain battle merits. No one is innocent, including this person. At that thought, she no longer hesitated, and the 2 sabers in her hands flashed, slicing towards the heads of the man and woman. Just one slash was enough to cut their heads in half. Even their Dao fruits could not block her scimitar. All of a sudden, the green-robed man opposite her raised his hand. The green-robed man's movements were not big, and he did not put on any airs. He merely extended his finger and knocked on her sabers. When she saw the green-robed man extend his finger, she did not take it to heart at all. Even if the green-robed man summoned his spirit treasure, he he would not be able to block the sharpness of her sabers, let alone a single finger. The difference in strength between the two of them was too great. However, the moment the green-robed man's finger tapped on the blade, her body trembled slightly. Her expression changed greatly as disbelief filled her eyes. That jade-like finger was like a stone pillar that reached the heavens. It heavily collided with her scimitar, bursting forth with shocking divine power. At that moment, she almost lost her grip on the scimitar in her hand. The webbing between her thumb and index finger was instantly torn apart, and blood was gushing out. She was greatly shocked. Right at this moment, a wisp of blazing and piercingly cold sword light appeared before his eyes, and it instantly arrived before him with ghastly killing intent. The sword-wielding woman had made her move. Under normal circumstances, this sword could not hurt her at all. However, her saber momentum was blocked by the green-robed man's finger, causing her to stop. Most importantly, the scene just now had a huge impact on her heart. Her reaction had also slowed down by a bit. She abruptly turned her body sideways and flapped her wings with all her might. She fled in an attempt to avoid the sword light. Unfortunately, he was still a step too late. Pucci, one of her arms, along with the two wings on the side, was severed by the sword. Blood gushed out like a fountain and sprayed into the air. Even though she was severely injured, she relied on the innate divine powers of the Rakshasa race to conjure two blood-colored wings with her bloodline. Maintaining her balance, she transformed into a streak of blood light and fled the battlefield. What a pity! When they saw that, Wang Dong, Gong Sun Yu and the others lamented internally. The Rakshasa race was way too fast. Even if they were severely injured, they might not have the chance to kill her. Of course, given Lin Xuanjin's combat strength, there was a high chance that he could kill her if he continued chasing after her. However, the moment Lin Xuanjin left, the thousand-sword formation would not be able to form. Wang Dong and Gong Sun Yu were not in any danger. They could protect themselves given their capabilities. However, that would be equivalent to exposing Su Zimo and Kitsune to danger. The exchange between Su Zimo and the Rakshasa woman happened in a flash. Furthermore, Su Zimo's movements were so subtle that Wang Dong, Gong Sun Yu and the others did not notice. All of them thought that it was Lin Xuanjin's timely intervention that saved Su Zimo and Kitsune. Lin Xuanjin was the only one who frowned slightly, feeling that something was amiss. Under normal circumstances, her sword should not have been able to hit the Rakshasa woman. However, the Rakshasa woman's body froze strangely after she attacked. That was why she was severely injured by her sword. Since the battle was still ongoing, Lin Xuanjin did not think too much about it, and covered the group as they charged into the forest. When the Rakshasa race saw that their leader was severely injured, they were completely enraged, and had no intention of letting Lin Xuanjin and the others off. They wanted to charge into the forest and continue their pursuit. Stop chasing. Suddenly, the female leader of the Rakshasa race shouted softly. When the 100-odd Rakshasas heard that, they did not dare to disobey, and lingered outside the forest for a while before returning to the female leader's side. "Leader," one of the Rakshasa race beings said hatefully, "are we going to let them off just like that? As long as we continue our pursuit and wear them down slowly, they won't be able to last much longer." The sword formation of that group of sword cultivators is indeed a little troublesome. However, the couple in the formation is their weakness. As long as we keep an eye on them, we'll have a chance to break the formation and kill them one by one. That's right. Among that group of sword cultivators, only that woman is a little troublesome. The rest are nothing to be afraid of. The Rakshasa race beings spoke one after another, but the female leader did not say anything the entire time. Weakness. A moment later, she scoffed coldly and handed the two curved sabers in her hands to everyone. The Rakshasas focused their gazes and their expressions changed. The two curved sabers were filled with cracks and were completely useless. How did this happen? One of the Rakshasa race beings asked cautiously. "Leader, your weapon seems to be an 8 tribulation spirit treasure, right?" The female leader replied coldly. "The weakness that you guys mentioned earlier on shattered my destiny spirit treasure with a single finger." Psst! The Rakshasas sucked in cold breaths. What sort of power was that to be able to shatter an 8 tribulation spirit treasure with a single finger? Among that group of people, that woman is only a little troublesome. However, the green-robed man in the sword formation is the true hidden expert. The Rakshasa leader said coldly. Are you guys sending yourselves to your deaths if you continue your pursuit? One of the Rakshasa race beings asked softly. Leader, since that green-robed man is so strong, should we inform the commander and get him to eliminate him? The female leader remained silent for a moment before shaking her head. There's no need for that yet. However, go back and inform your clansmen to avoid that group of sword cultivators for the time being. Don't fight with them and wait and see. Understood. The Rakshasas scattered one after another, turning into streaks of dark light that vanished into the horizon. The female leader of the Rakshasa race looked in the direction of the forest with a hint of confusion in her eyes. Logically speaking, given the green-robed man's capabilities, he should have been able to kill her. However, why did he spare her life and allow her to leave? Chapter 2790. In the forest, everyone from the sword world sped for a while, and heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that there were no Rakshasas chasing after them. They consumed some elixirs and rested on the spot. Indeed, Gongsun chuckled. The Rakshasas are wary of the forest, and their movement techniques are restricted. That's why they did not dare to continue chasing after us, and could only give up. If they had entered the forest, the Rakshasas would definitely have left a few corpses behind. Li Shui said coldly. When Wang Dong saw that Su Zimo and Kitsune were fine, he patted his chest and said with lingering fear, I was scared to death earlier on. Thankfully, the Peak Master and junior sister Baiming are fine. Otherwise, we would have committed unforgivable sins. Sword Immortal Tai Lai added. Thankfully, senior sister Lin intervened in time and severely injured that female Rakshasa ghost. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Su Zimo did not explain further, and turned to Lin Xuanjin, cupping his fists. Thank you for saving us, fellow Taoist Lin. Although he was the peak master of Ninth Sword Peak, he never put on airs in front of cultivators of the same cultivation realm like Lin Xuanjin and Wang Dong. Most of the time, he addressed them as fellow Taoists. Lin Xuanjin nodded and did not say anything. However, she still felt that something was amiss and looked at Su Zimo deeply. Wang Dong, Gongsun Yu and the others chatted while resting, exchanging their insights from the earlier battle. Lin Xuanjin rolled her eyes at Su Zimo and asked in a seemingly casual manner, Peak Master Su's senses are sharp. You discovered the Rakshasas a long time ago. In reality, Lin Xuanjin had noticed Su Zimo a long time ago. When she first heard that Su Zimo had become the Peak Master of Ninth Sword Peak, she was indignant. However, when she headed to Ninth Sword Peak and comprehended the Tao of Sword Burial, she realized how terrifying it was. Someone who could create a sword Tao, as such, was definitely extraordinary. However, Su Zimo was in seclusion all year round and lived in seclusion. As such, the two of them did not have much chance to interact. Among cultivators of the same level, the only one that Lin Xuanjin couldn't see through was Su Zimo. What she said just now was also a test. She was a little confused. Su Zimo was only at the celestial being stage. How could he find the Rakshasa ghost earlier than her? Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others also began to realize what was going on. Gong Sunyu was a little embarrassed. He laughed awkwardly and said, Peak Master, I thought you were just too nervous. I didn't expect you to be right. Su Zimo smiled but didn't say anything. Of course, among the 8 people, Shen Yu, Li Shui, and the others still didn't think much of it. They only thought that Su Zimo had said it casually, and that he had guessed correctly. After the great battle, everyone relaxed and chatted as they rested. They were in high spirits and were rather excited. Su Zimo sat quietly in the same place. No one knew what he was thinking. In truth, with his abilities, he could have easily killed the Rakshasa clan commander earlier. In fact, it wouldn't have been difficult for him to kill the Rakshasa clan. However, seeing the Rakshasa clan in the land of evil demons reminded him of something else. That was why he was a little distracted. When the female Rakshasa clan commander attacked him, He wanted to kill her on the spot. However, the moment they exchanged blows, he suddenly thought of an old friend from Tianhuang region as he looked at his opponent's eyes and face. Yu Luosha. He and Yu Luosha didn't have a deep relationship, but there was some karma between them. Yu Luosha had once submitted to Wu Dao's original body. After she regained her freedom, she had never betrayed him. Moreover, after she led the Rakshasa clan, she had never had any conflicts with humans. Just this point alone was a great merit. When he thought of Yu Luosha, Su Zimo didn't kill her. When the female Rakshasa clan commander fled, after being severely injured by Lin Xuanjin, he didn't stop her either. Master, are you thinking of Yu Luosha? Suddenly, Kitsun's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Kitsun was the only one who could roughly guess Su Zimo's thoughts. Su Zimo nodded. To think that the Rakshasa race would be reduced to evil fiends and sinful spirits in the upper world. Now that Yu Luosha has ascended to the upper world, it's probably even harder for her to survive. In fact, she might even be in the evil demon battlefield. At that thought, Su Zimo suddenly regretted it. If he had known, he would have captured a Rakshasa and questioned him in detail. Before long, everyone recovered more or less and got up to continue on their journey. The forest was dark and deep with countless towering ancient trees, blocking one's vision, and even the range of one's spirit consciousness was greatly hindered. The forest was silent the entire way, and only the occasional sound of rotten leaves and branches under their feet could be heard. It was eerie and sinister. All of a sudden, Su Zimo frowned and shifted his gaze to an ancient tree diagonally ahead. That ancient tree grew in the darkness, and was no different from the other trees around it. However, Su Zimo's spirit perception was way too strong. He could sense that there was a person hidden there, who was almost fused with the ancient tree. Su Zimo did not make a move immediately. That was because the living being hidden there was not a fiend, but a human that looked exactly like them. However, that person did not have a heaven bestowment badge on his waist. Right then, Lin Xuanjin, who was at the front, stopped in her tracks. She did not make a move. Instead, she turned to look in Su Zimo's direction before drawing her immortal sword and slashing at the ancient tree. The ancient tree snapped with a single sound. Not only that, the ancient tree was sliced into two and spat out fresh blood as it fell to the ground heavily. When Wang Dong, Gong Sun Yu and the others saw Lin Xuanjin stop in her tracks, they realized that something was amiss. When Lin Xuanjin severed the ancient tree, they realized that there was a person hidden in the darkness. That person was dressed in black and was lying in a pool of blood. His body was sliced into two by Lin Xuanjin's immortal sword. The terrifying sword chi had already surged into his body, and even his spirit consciousness. His Dao fruit was covered in sword scars. The black-robed man was only a Kongming perfected immortal. Even a casual slash from Lin Xuanjin was not enough for him to withstand. However, the black-robed man did not make a single sound from the beginning to the end. Even after being sliced in half by Lin Xuanjin, he did not reveal any pain on his face. He merely glared coldly at Su Zimo and the others. Lin Xuanjin carried her bloodless immortal sword and strode to the black-robed man's side. She looked down at him with an indifferent gaze. "All of you will die here." The black-robed man suddenly spoke. Before he finished speaking, a dazzling light burst out from between the black-robed man's eyebrows. It emitted a heart-palpitating energy fluctuation. Even Su Zimo felt a chill run down his spine. The black-robed man was so resolute. He wanted to detonate his Dao fruit and use the terrifying energy from the explosion to drag Lin Xuanjin down with him. After all, at the peak of the Dongxu stage, the explosion of one's Dao fruit could pierce through the void and create a grotto heaven. Although it was only a Kongming Dao fruit, once it exploded, it would still produce a terrifying amount of energy. Buzz! The immortal sword in Lin Xuanjin's hand trembled slightly. A flash of sword light entered between the black-robed man's eyebrows and instantly pierced through his primordial spirit. As the black-robed man died, the light between his eyebrows also dimmed. Lin Xuanjin seemed to have anticipated this and did not give him a chance to detonate his Dao fruit. Chapter 2791. A Dao fruit was the condensed essence of a cultivator's cultivation. Unless they had no other choice, most cultivators would not choose such a resolute method. Everyone had a wishful thinking and would not be willing to give up their last shred of hope, even if they were on the brink of despair. However, the black-robed man did not hesitate at all. Wielding sword immortal, Lin Xuanjin tapped the black-robed man's glabella gently with the tip of his sword and dug out the man's Dao fruit. Unfortunately, the man's Dao fruit was already filled with cracks and was of no use. Lin Xuanjin took off the man's storage bag and swept it with his spirit consciousness before tossing it on the ground casually. Wang Dong explained to Su Zimo and Kitsune softly, "Most of these fiends' sinful spirits do not have any treasures and have empty bags. That's why our storage bags are extremely attractive to them." After killing the man, Lin Xuanjin said indifferently, "Human cultivators in the fiend battlefield, who do not have heaven's acknowledgement badges, can be treated as sinful spirits. There's no need to be merciful to them." That statement seemed a little redundant. Everyone already knew about that before entering the fiend battlefield. However, for some reason, Lin Xuanjin had to explain it again. Su Zimo was the only one who could tell that Lin Xuanjin's words were meant for him. Wang Dong added, "That's right. Even if we don't kill them, the other party will kill us immediately. The moment we step into the fiend battlefield, we are irreconcilable with the fiend's sinful spirits. It's a fight to the death." Su Zimo pondered for a moment before saying, "Actually, I've been cultivating the Thousand Sword formation for the past few years as well. Why don't you count me in?" This. When they heard that, Wang Dong, Gong Sun Yu and the others exchanged glances and fell silent for a moment with troubled expressions. Under normal circumstances, a sword formation formed by 9 people was indeed stronger than a sword formation formed by 8 people. However, Peak Master Su's cultivation realm was only at Heavenly Human Realm. If he were to join the sword formation, he would instead become a flaw in the sword formation. The power of the sword formation would decrease instead of increase. To put it simply, if Peak Master Su were to join the sword formation, he would drag the 8 of them down instead. However, it wasn't good to tell Peak Master Su about this, as it would hurt his reputation. After a while, Wang Dong coughed softly and said with a smile, "Peak Master Su, the 8 of us are more familiar with the coordination of the Thousand Sword formation. You've only been cultivating the sword formation for a short while, so we might not be used to it if you suddenly join us. These days, you can observe our cooperation in the sword formation and familiarize yourself with it." "Exactly," Gong Sun Yu also hurriedly said. "We all understand Peak Master Su's intentions. You also want to help, but Peak Master need not be in such a hurry. In the future, when we encounter some evil spirits in the consolidation stage and the celestial being stage, I'll let you show your skills." "All right." Su Zimo understood what Wang Tong and the others were implying, so he didn't insist. To him, it did not matter whether he joined the sword formation or not. If Lin Xuanjin and the others really encountered any danger that they couldn't resolve, he could intervene at any time. For everyone, an ambush as such was merely a small interlude. None of them took it to heart and continued forward. Before long, a commotion broke out in the darkness of the forest once more. This time round, even without Su Zimo's reminder, Wang Tong, Gong Sun Yu and the others had sensed danger as well. "Get into formation and be on guard." Lin Xuanjin's reminder caused everyone to slow down as well. Following that, there was another long period of silence. The surrounding temperature seemed to have dropped to freezing point, and the atmosphere was stifling. Everyone knew that they were going to be faced with a massacre. After an unknown period of time, a series of divine powers and dermic treasures burst forth from the darkness, blanketing Lin Xuanjin's group of 10. The Thousand Sword formation was activated once more, releasing thousands of sword chi that shredded the darkness around them. Dozens of figures charged out of the darkness, glaring at Su Zimo and the others with murderous intent. They were no different from human cultivators, except that they did not have heaven worship badges on their waists. "Kill!" the leader hollered. A huge battle broke out between both sides. Lin Xuanjin, Wang Tong and the others attacked with all their might. Massacring Sword Dao, Absolute Sword Dao, Extreme Sword Dao. The eight-sword Daos released a terrifying lethality with the support of the thousand-sword formation. Although the other party had dozens of perfected immortals, and had the advantage in numbers, Lin Xuanjin and the others defended with the thousand-sword formation, and launched a powerful counterattack. In less than 10 breaths of time, 6 of the other party's perfected immortals were severely injured. One of them was even killed by Lin Xuanjin on the spot. The dozens of perfected immortals did not form a formation, and fought individually. In the end, they could not defend against the thousand-sword formation. Both parties had a rough idea of the other party's strength after a single clash. Even if Lin Xuanjin and the others did not form the thousand-sword formation, the sinful spirits would not be a match for them. Lin Xuanjin seemed to have entered a strange state. Her expression was indifferent, and her eyes were empty without any emotions. Although she mainly cultivated the Tao of the Absolute Sword, the 3 sword arts were still able to release a terrifying lethality in her hands. In midair, a blood mist spread. The baptism of blood nourished Lin Xuanjin's massacring sword Tao continuously. Su Zimo had already comprehended the immortal vanquishing sword, and his understanding of the massacring sword Tao surpassed Lin Xuanjin's. He could sense that Lin Xuanjin would be able to comprehend the immortal vanquishing sword very soon, and was just short of an opportunity. The battle lasted for only 100 breaths, before the other party began to collapse. More than 10 sinful spirits had already collapsed in pools of blood and died. The remaining sinful spirits could not withstand the attacks of the thousand-sword formation, and retreated one after another, wanting to return to the darkness of the forest. If Lin Xuanjin and the others wanted to continue chasing, it would be difficult to maintain the thousand-sword formation's formation. With their methods, they would naturally not encounter any danger. However, Su Zimo and Kitsune, who were in the center of the sword formation, would have no one to protect them. However, this opportunity was extremely rare. If they could kill a few more sinful spirits, they might be able to obtain 100 battle merits in this battle alone. I'll go after them. You guys stay here and protect Peak Master Su and Junior Sister Baiming, Lin Xuanjin said, and took the lead in chasing after them. Just as they reached the edge of the dark forest, Lin Xuanjin suddenly stopped and leaped into the air. He shouted, "Be careful of the Yiksha ghosts." The soil under Lin Xuanjin suddenly cracked open, and a monster with dark green skin and a hump-like head with sparse green hair emerged with a steel fork in its hand. It went straight for Lin Xuanjin. If Lin Xuanjin had reacted a little slower and did not stop in time, he would have been pierced by this Yiksha. This monster was extremely ugly and ferocious. It was the Yiksha that Su Zimo had seen in the Divine Firmament Celestial Realm's Shura battlefield. However, the Yikshas in the Shura battlefield had been dead for many years. They had only borrowed the power of blood to reincarnate. However, the Yiksha in front of them was surging with blood and vitality. It was a real living creature, and its combat power was many times stronger than those walking corpses. Chapter 2792. At the same time, 10 black shadows darted out from the dense forest and descended from the sky. They were densely packed like huge bats, pouncing toward Wang Tong, Gong Sun Yu and the others. "Everyone be careful." Wang Tong's heart skipped a beat as he let out a soft bellow. These bat-like black shadows that pounced over from the sky were all heavenly Yikshas. These heavenly Yikshas held steel tridents with savage expressions. They grinned, and their 2 rows of sharp, intersecting fangs rubbed against each other, releasing a series of horrifying sounds. The Yiksha that had just emerged from the ground belonged to the earthly Yiksha. Both types of Yikshas were ugly, and there were some obvious differences in their physiques. It was as if the heavenly Yiksha had a thin layer of wings under its ribs, connecting its arms and legs. When fully extended, it was like a huge bat. Heavenly Yikshas were best at fighting in midair, and their movement techniques were agile. Earthly Yikshas, on the other hand, were like fish in water when they were deep underground. These Yikshas grasped the timing of their attacks extremely accurately. When Lin Xuanjin left, it was when the sword formation dissipated. That earthly Yiksha's battle prowess was very strong, belonging to the Paradise Void realm. To think that it could fight against Lin Xuanjin and it was hard to determine the victor within a short period of time. This group of yakshas had been hiding in the darkness for an unknown period of time. They had observed that Lin Xuanjin's battle prowess was the strongest. Therefore, taking advantage of Lin Xuanjin's absence, they launched a fierce attack, splitting Lin Xuanjin, Wang Tong, and the others into 2 battlefields, taking them down one by one. At least 8 people were required to form the myriad sword formation. 10 heavenly yakshas descended from the sky, attacking ferociously and rapidly. Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others tried their best to shrink their defensive formation, protecting Su Zimo and Kitsune in the center. Although there were 10 heavenly yakshas, they were still unable to gain much of an advantage against Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others. Seeing that Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others had the upper hand, Su Zimo was not in a hurry to make a move. Suddenly, Su Zimo's expression changed, and a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. In his perception, an earth yaksha was sneaking out from the depths of the earth. It was staring at Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others, waiting for an opportunity to strike. This earth yaksha was at the Dongshi stage, and it didn't put Su Zimo in its eyes at all. Instead, it wanted to ambush Wang Tong and the others. This earth yaksha was extremely well hidden. It hid deep underground and held its breath. Even its heartbeat became almost negligible, and the flow of its blood almost stopped. Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others were engaged in a battle with the 10 heavenly yakshas, and had yet to notice the danger hidden deep underground. In fact, had it not been for Su Zimo's powerful spiritual sense, he might not have been able to detect the existence of this earth yaksha. Su Zimo sneered and touched his forehead with his finger. A green light flashed. It was the peerless divine weapon that was derived from Qinglian's growth to the 12th grade, Qingping sword. With the Qingping sword in hand, Su Zimo did not take any stance. With a flip of his hand, the Qingping sword instantly sank into the ground, and a 2-finger-wide sword hole appeared. How could this earth yaksha have expected that while it was motionless, a sharp sword would descend from the sky and sink into the top of its head? Its essence spirit was extinguished and it died on the spot. Even at the moment of its death, this earth yaksha did not know what had happened. Su Zimo kept the Qingping sword. The entire process was completed almost silently. Even Wang Tong and the others did not know what had happened, let alone the earth yaksha deep underground. After Su Zimo killed this earth yaksha, the entire battle situation suddenly changed. The 10 heavenly yakshas that were still engaged in a battle with Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others seemed to have sensed something. They suddenly panicked, and even had thoughts of retreating. The earth yaksha that was engaged in a battle with Lin Xuanjin also suddenly became flustered, and revealed many openings. It was killed on the spot by Lin Xuanjin's quasi-supreme divine power immortal vanquishing sword. Seems like the earth yaksha that I killed has quite a high status. Su Zimo thought to himself. That was precisely the reason why the earth yakshas were flustered. Seeing that the situation was not good, the 10 heavenly yakshas turned and fled. The auras of Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu and the others surged. How could they possibly let the heavenly yakshas escape so easily? They gave chase and worked together with Lin Xuanjin, who had turned back to attack. In just a few tens of breaths, they killed all 10 of the heavenly yakshas. Although they had expended quite a bit of energy in this battle, Wang Tong and the others were still excited. The 10 heavenly yakshas were all at the insightful void realm. That was 100 battle merits. Coupled with the sinful spirits that they had just killed, the battle merits that they obtained from this battle totaled up to close to 150 points. The trip to the Fiend battlefield this time round was much smoother than they had imagined. Let's leave this place first. After a simple sweep of the battlefield, Lin Xuanjin led the group and continued forward without resting. There was a high chance that the stench of blood here would attract even stronger fiend and sinful spirits. In fact, they might even encounter other living beings of the 3,000 worlds. The group had just gone through a huge battle and needed to rest. Everyone quickened their footsteps and finally rushed out of the forest before night fell. Let's find a safer place to rest first, Wang Tong said in a deep voice. The group searched along the foot of the mountain and finally found a hidden cave. However, They did not know what was in the cave that gave off a nauseating stench. Everyone frowned and revealed looks of disgust. They prepared to leave this place and look for another place to rest. Lin Xuanjin's expression was indifferent as he suddenly said, "It's relatively safe here. This stench can cover our auras." Upon hearing that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have recalled something and was in a daze. Wang Tong, Gong Sun Yu and the others did not say anything when they saw Lin Xuanjin's decision. They held their breaths and headed into the cave. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and looked at the walls of the cave. There seemed to be something smeared on them. That was the stench coming from the cave. Wang Tong shook his head gently. I wonder what kind of beast would have such a weird habit of smearing its own feces on the walls of the cave. Su Zimo's heart stirred once more. Actually, he thought of monkey the moment Lin Xuanjin said that. However, how could there be such a coincidence in the world? Furthermore, monkey belonged to the demon race, and apes should not appear in the fiend battlefield. The 7 of them had ascended. However, Su Zimo did not receive any news of monkey, Night Spirit, and the others after their ascension. He did not know where monkey, Night Spirit, and the others were, and if they were fine. Su Zimo pondered as he followed the group, and arrived at the end of the cave. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Suddenly, a soft cry sounded from the end of the cave. Immediately after, a small monkey stumbled out from the darkness of the cave. It looked like it was only a few months old, and had just learned how to walk. The young monkey struggled to stand up straight, and sucked on its fingers, widening its pitch-black eyes. It tilted its head slightly, and looked at Su Zimo, and the others with a hint of curiosity. Chapter 2793. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The baby monkey did not know how to speak, so it did not raise its guard when it saw Su Zimo and the others. It only babbled as if it was asking something. A faint red light flashed through the baby monkey's black eyes occasionally. When he noticed that red light, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. The monkey's eyes had such a characteristic. The others from Sword World were also surprised when they saw the baby monkey. Wang Dong said, "It looks like this baby monkey is the descendant of a sinful spirit, and belongs to the Sanguine Ape clan. The red light in its eyes is a unique characteristic of the Sanguine Ape clan." Gong Sun Yu said, "The Sanguine Ape clan is ranked quite high among all living beings, especially after they reach adulthood and awaken the bloodline talent of the Sanguine Ape clan. When they enter a berserk state, their combat strength will increase tremendously. They can even fight against the top races of all living beings." It was only now that Su Zimo knew that the monkey belonged to the Sanguine Ape clan of the upper world. Sword Immortal Tai Lai said, "I heard that the Sanguine Ape clan dominated the 3,000 worlds in a previous epoch. They were invincible." "There is indeed such a thing." Monk Zhu Jian nodded slightly. "That epoch was called the Era of Battle. Back then, the Sanguine Ape clan gave birth to a peerless expert who fought in the 3,000 worlds. He was invincible, and was eventually crowned as the Emperor of Battle." A figure holding a long staff and looking down on the world appeared in Su Zimo's mind. Back then, when Wu Dao's original body went through the tribulation, the 10th tribulation had formed an old ape with unparalleled combat strength. Now that he thought about it, it should be the Emperor of Battle. Monk Zhu Jian sighed. This Emperor of Battle spent his entire life fighting against the heavens, the earth, and even the living beings of all living beings until he died in battle. It's sad. Su Zimo frowned and could not help but ask, "This expert of the Sanguine Ape clan has already become a great emperor. Who can kill him?" "I'm not sure." Monk Zhu Jian shook his head. "This Emperor of Battle lost his mind, and chose to ally himself with demons, and become enemies with all living beings. The Heavenly Tao probably did not tolerate this. It's precisely because he allied himself with the evil demon that the Blood Ape clan was implicated, and almost went extinct. In the Era of Battle, the Blood Ape realm was one of the most powerful great realms. Now countless epochs have passed, and the Blood Ape realm still hasn't recovered. It can only be considered a higher realm now." Wang Dong said, "The Blood Ape race in the evil demon battlefield is the descendant of the Blood Apes in spirit from the war epoch. They bear the great sin of their ancestor. The Blood Ape realm can be considered lucky. Gong Sun Yu said. Since ancient times, who knows how many realms and races have been completely annihilated in that calamity? Qin Zhong said. Since ancient times, evil has never triumphed over righteousness. So what if you're the emperor of Dozhan? You're on the side of evil. In the end, you're no match for the will and power of all living beings. Since he is the descendant of a sinful spirit, kill him. Shen Yu drew his sword and prepared to kill the young monkey. Wait! Su Zimo suddenly spoke. Peak Master Su, what's wrong? Shen Yu turned around and asked. Everyone else looked at Su Zimo as well. Su Zimo said. This young monkey is only a few months old. Even if we kill him, there won't be any battle merits. Let him live. Actually, a thought flashed through his mind. Could this young monkey be related to Monkey by blood? Although the possibility was low, Su Zimo could not let this young monkey die here as long as there was a 1 in 10,000 chance. Su Zimo did not care about evil demons or sinful spirits. He only knew that Monkey was the first brother he made in Tianhuang mainland. When he was still weak and not strong enough, Monkey risked his life to save him from the jaws of a wolf and the sword of a Foundation establishment cultivator. If this young monkey was Monkey's child, he would not allow anyone to harm him. Ba. Monk Zhu Jian chanted a Buddhist proclamation softly. Peak Master Su is benevolent. However, Shen Yu was indifferent. Shen Yu said, this monkey isn't a threat now. However, one day, he'll grow up and become a cruel, sinful spirit. Let's kill him while he's still young, and remove a potential threat, lest the living beings of the other 3,000 worlds die in his hands. Brother Shen, forget it. Wang Dong persuaded from the side. It's just a young monkey. Actually, Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong and the others did not intend to make a move. Deep in their hearts, they were still conflicted about dealing with a young monkey that was only a few months old. This young monkey was like a newborn baby, like a piece of white paper. It didn't know right and wrong, and it didn't have any hatred. It didn't have the slightest bit of defense against strangers like them. Killing a young monkey like that was akin to killing a defenseless child. Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong and the others were perfected immortals and naturally disdained such a matter. When Shen Yu heard Wang Dong's persuasion, he did not insist and shrugged. Whatever. Even if we don't kill it, how long can a young monkey like that live in the fiend battlefield? With that, Shen Yu walked out of the cave. Not long after, a black shadow suddenly rushed out from the darkness of the fork and pounced toward Shen Yu with a low roar. Shen Yu reacted extremely quickly and immediately retreated to the side. He took out his immortal sword and stabbed toward the black shadow. In an instant, dozens of sword shadows emerged from the sword and enveloped the black shadow. Puchi! The black shadow groaned, and a few streaks of blood burst out from its body. However, the black shadow did not show any signs of retreating. Instead, it became even more violent. Its eyes flashed with red light as it charged toward Shen Yu with no regard for its life. Lin Xuanjin and the others quickly rushed over and took a closer look. The black shadow was a tall female ape. Its body was covered in blood and dust. In addition to the new wounds that Shen Yu had just left, there were also countless old wounds that had not yet formed scabs. The female ape's thigh injury was the most serious. The flesh around the wound had already rotted, revealing the white bones inside. She was limping as she walked. Evil beast, you're courting death. Shen Yu's expression was cold. Although this female ape was also at the Dongshu stage, her injuries were too serious. She was no match for Shen Yu at all. Shen Yu attacked again. This attack was extremely stunning. The sword light was dazzling and thousands of sword shadows burst out in an instant. It was impossible to see the true body of the immortal sword at all. Under the illumination of the sword light, the female ape only felt a stabbing pain in her eyes. 2 lines of blood uncontrollably flowed down from her eyes. However, she still tried to open her eyes as wide as possible and rushed forward recklessly. She wanted to protect her child, even if she had to give up her life. Shen Yu's eyes were cold, and a trace of disdain flashed across his eyes. He had released all the artistic conception of the illusory sword Dao in this attack. Not to mention that this female ape was seriously injured. Even if she was in her best condition, she would not be able to block this attack. The true body of the immortal sword was hidden under the countless sword shadows and stabbed toward the female ape's forehead. Just as his immortal sword was about to enter the female ape's forehead, a green brilliance suddenly flashed and pierced through the countless illusions and hit the ridge of his immortal sword. Chapter 2794. Xinyu shuddered. Not only did the green light break his illusory sword Dao, but it also struck the weakest point of his immortal sword. It was extremely powerful. His arm that was holding the sword trembled slightly, and he felt numb. Xinyu focused his eyes and noticed that this wisp of emerald green brilliance was an emerald green and glistening longsword. The edge of the sword was swift and fierce, and it was even superior to his natal immortal sword. His attack was blocked, and the sword was deflected. The power of the immortal sword had been scattered, and it was no longer a threat to the female ape. However, the female ape's eyes flashed with a bloody light, and she had no intention of stopping. The green longsword did not stop. It separated from Xinyu's immortal sword and suddenly moved horizontally. It landed on the female ape's body and flicked lightly. The green longsword was not even as thick as the female ape's arm. However, such a simple flick was enough to stop the female ape's momentum. Her huge body was thrown high into the air, and she landed steadily on the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. The green longsword broke the illusory sword Dao and collided with Xinyu's immortal sword, and an unparalleled power burst forth. In the blink of an eye, the green longsword landed on the female ape's body and turned gentle. This change between hardness and softness showed the swordsman's exquisite control of his own power. "Who is it?" Xinyu shouted. He took a deep breath and circulated his blood qi. He held his sword in front of his chest and took a step back. He was on high alert. "Peak Master Su?" Xinyu turned around and saw Su Zimo standing not far away with the green longsword in his hand. Lin Xuanjin, Wang Dong, and the others were also shocked. They only saw a figure flash before their eyes. They did not expect that the person who attacked was Su Zimo. What's going on? Peak Master Su saw through Brother Shen's illusory sword Dao and forced Brother Shen to retreat with one strike? Wang Dong, Gong Sunyu, and the others looked at each other. They could see the confusion and disbelief in each other's eyes. The biggest possibility was that Xinyu had not used his full strength, and Peak Leader Suju had used her full strength to attack him when he was unprepared. In fact, Su Zimo had only used 30% of his strength when he attacked earlier, because he was afraid of injuring Xinyu. Peak Master Suju, what is the meaning of this? Xinyu frowned. His face darkened, and there was a trace of anger in his tone. Just now, Su Zimo had stopped him from killing that monkey. Although he was somewhat dissatisfied in his heart, he did not say anything. After all, a monkey that was only a few months old posed no threat to them. Moreover, it had no battle merits. However, the female ape in front of them was obviously hostile to them. Furthermore, killing this female ape would give them 10 battle achievements. Now that Peak Master Suju was here to stop them, Xinyu was a little annoyed. Moreover, both sides had just exchanged blows. This was much more serious than a verbal dispute. Wang Tong, Gong Sunyu, and the others hurried over. Although the crowd did not say anything, their gazes towards Su Zimo carried a trace of doubt. Peak Master Suju, Xinyu said in a deep voice. Although your cultivation realm is not as high as mine, you are a peak master. I, Xinyu, have never looked down on you. I would like to ask Peak Master Suju, putting aside the fact that you were protecting that monkey just now, why did you save this beast now? Lin Xuanjin, Wang Tong, and the others all looked towards Su Zimo. They could not understand Su Zimo's actions. When the female ape saw so many top experts running out of the cave, she also calmed down. The red light in her eyes gradually receded, and she did not act rashly. Moreover, from Xinyu's words, she at least knew that her child was not dead. The female ape looked at Su Zimo's back, and a trace of doubt flashed in her eyes. She did not understand why this true spirit from the outside world would appear to save her, and even protect her child. Although she did not know the reason, the female ape could vaguely feel that this man in green did not have any hostility towards her. I have a few questions that I would like to ask her. Suzimo said. And then? Shinyu stared at Suzimo and asked. Suzimo was silent. Forget it, forget it. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little tense, Wang Tong coughed lightly and stood up to smooth things over. This beast is useful to Peak Master Su. Let her ask first, we will talk later. As he spoke, Wang Tong nudged Shinyu, indicating that he should calm down first, so that he would not offend Suju verbally. Shinyu walked a few steps, and saw that Wang Tong and the others were still there. He could not help but sneer. Peak Master Suju is asking questions. What are you guys still doing there? Wang Tong said. I am here to watch, in case this beast goes berserk and hurts people. Shinyu curled his lips and said. As a Peak Master Suju could easily beat me back with a casual move. Why does she need Brother Wang's protection? Wang Tong looked at Suzimo awkwardly. Suzimo's expression was calm, and he was not angry. After all, Shenyu was the #1 of illusory sword peak. He was somewhat unconvinced that his Tao of illusory sword was broken by Wang Tong. But he was a peak master, and could not be bothered to argue with Shinyu. Lin Xuanjin suddenly said, You guys go out, I will guard here. Wang Tong and the others naturally had no objection to Lin Xuanjin's words. Shinyu shrugged and turned to leave. Lin Xuanjin took a few steps back, leaving enough space for Suzimo and the mother ape. At the same time, at this distance, if anything happened, she could make a move in time. At this moment, the baby monkey in the cave heard the commotion outside and also staggered out. After seeing the mother ape, its little face was full of joy and it squeaked. After the mother ape saw the baby monkey, the hostility on her body disappeared in an instant, and her eyes became much gentler. All creatures had maternal instincts. The mother ape went forward and hugged the baby monkey in her arms. After checking that there were no injuries, she heaved a sigh of relief. Of course, the mother ape still looked at Suzimo with a hint of wariness. Suzimo came before the mother ape and channeled his true essence, condensing an ancient mirror in his palm with the image of a monkey. He's also from the sanguine ape race. Do you know him? Suzimo asked. The mother ape looked at the image on the ancient mirror with a confused expression. After a while, she shook her head. Suzimo heaved a sigh of relief and was relieved. From the looks of it, monkeys should not be in the fiend battlefield.